So we love to start with the leadership credo. It is the foundation for all of us and sets the tone for our discussion today. So we encourage you to do all these things: cultivate authentic relationships, act with courage, dedicate yourself to your path, be a lifetime learner, and celebrate each other.
Okay.
All right. So let's get into today's topic: maximizing the connection between marketing and sales. So just a little bit about us and what brings us here today to lead you through this conversation about the alignment of marketing and sales. This is our little ikigai. And ikigai is a Japanese term meaning reason for being. These are the services and the ways that we put ourselves forward as Outfront Solutions. And Outfront Solutions is a partnership and firm that Jeanine and I have created. We've been business partners for 20 years, on and off, mostly on, and providing all of these different services to Fortune 500 companies like Accenture and Apple and Booz Allen, and name a number of different companies, Omnicom, as well as middle market companies and well-funded startups. And we've helped people a lot with their personal brands. So we're always focused on growing visibility and growth and valuation. And so today's conversation is going to be all along those lines and the amalgamation of all of that experience that we have.
Hi, so I'm Jeanine Moss. I don't know if the speaker thing switched. Did it?
Yeah.
Good. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeanine Moss, and the reason why we wanted to do this particular session is because the alignment between sales and marketing is the single greatest, most important thing you can do to improve productivity and ROI quickly and right now. So, and we know, going into recession is we are business owners, we're saying, okay, how do we maximize sales? How many channels can we get going? And so that's why we wanted to share that with you. What is it? What is this alignment, and who even thought that it wasn't aligned? Well, we've learned in our careers that it's rarely aligned, but it's a shared system of goals, strategies, processes, and communications that enable the two teams, the sales and marketing teams, to work as a single whole. And that's so important today because of the customer journey and where people are coming from and how many touch points they have with you and the need for consistency across all of this. Also, we're going to talk more about what's changed to make it so important. So look at that. Only 8% of companies have a unified sales and marketing teams. And honestly, that's what we see too. So let's turn it back to Nicole to talk about some of the statistics.
Yeah, so what's not working? So here's a gut-wrenching statistic. 79% of marketing leads never convert to never convert, period. And that's due to failure in nurturing the connection. So for marketers, that's a tough number to see because we put a lot of effort into driving each and every lead, and for 79% to not be converted is pretty rough. And it's really about nurturing the customer along the journey. And we're going to talk a lot about that later. So 60 to 70% of B2B content is never even used because the subject topics are irrelevant, so it's super important to have highly relevant content, and it's absolutely something that we can know and understand what is truly relevant for the potential buyer. And so we're going to talk a lot about tools and technologies that help with nurturing connections and making sure your content is relative. 61% of B2B marketers send all leads directly to sales, but only 27% of those leads will be actually even qualified. So you see that attrition, and it's really unfortunate. And there can be a lot of reasons why that happens. And we'll talk about, having standard operating procedures and things like that, so that or even the definition of terms. What is a lead? So we'll talk about that later. 1/3 of B2B sales and marketing teams don't even have a standing meeting. So this is a time to get on the same page. Productivity is dependent on communication, and with being disconnected because of being having to be remote and work remote, it's just more important than ever to reconnect the teams.
And on a practical basis, think about it. When you're selling, you learn what makes a customer's eyes sparkle and what makes them want to learn more. And if you were sharing that information with marketing, they could create content about that. They could use that as a focus for their marketing. So sharing information is enormously important.
So why is it so difficult? Of course, the pandemic changed the buying journey considerably, right? We may have in the past had, especially for B2B marketers, we may have had these opportunities to meet people at conferences, or host events and have meetings in person. That buying journey is dramatically changed because everything is required to be digital, and so strongly. Even with people coming back part of the time, that buying journey is significantly altered. Thus, the proliferation of marketing technologies, sales technologies, and ad technologies, and we'll talk about that later. A lot of times, there isn't the alignment in goals and strategies and capabilities and value propositions across marketing and sales. And so it's imperative to have an aligned go-to-market strategy. We've experienced so many times that a lot of times marketing will create a go-to-market strategy and never even communicate it and share it with the sales team, or sales will create a go-to-market strategy and never even communicate it with marketing. So those combined goal strategies, value propositions, it's really important to have that connection and communication. The proliferation of communications channels has gone so far and wide. And so there can be a real lack of consistency. We always talk about the 3 C's: clarity, consistency, and clarity, clear, consistent, and concise. And so with those channels, it's just super important to have that message come through, because as we all know, the buyer needs to have a message received, not one time, not 7 times, but really, truly multiple times in order to make that sale. And then the digital engagement part of the world, it also needs a human handoff. We a lot of times will interact with technology as, say, a chatbot, for example, and in the end, we need a lot of times a connection to a human, a live person, to actually make that final sale. So the combination of digital technologies and the human connection and handoff is really important.
And for those of you who don't have different departments in sales and marketing, think about this. So I think this can be helpful to you just in thinking about, what is this process? At what point do I step in and make a call? At what point if you think through the entire beginning to end, you'll have a more seamless experience for your customers.
And why does it matter? So 95% of shoppers surveyed prefer companies that help them with relevant content during the entire journey. during their entire buying journey. So, you really got to stay with people so they don't fall off in their engagement, and that relevant content is super important. 56% of aligned companies actually meet their revenue goals. So, there's hope, and being aligned with marketing and sales, really does provide a significant ROI, and you're meeting revenue goals much more strongly typically. And then businesses with sales and marketing teams aligned have a 36% higher customer retention. So that's really helpful for the bottom line growth as well. And then sales and marketing alignment can help you become helps you become 67% better at closing deals. So that's why we're here today, to take us through all the ways that we can find greater alignment between the two organizations, teams, or even with your processes if you're both acting as sales and marketing in that capacity.
So we're going to talk about the terms that you would want to have clarity on. We're going to talk about how to create sales-focused content and what that is. And we're going to discuss the processes a little bit and go into some depth on technology, because even if you're a sole practitioner, there are a ton of technologies that can make your life easier, faster, better, and close more deals. So let's jump right in. So the first thing is a grounding across your entire organization about some basic things. And it starts with who you're selling to and why. Not only the demographic stuff, but where their needs are, where they are culturally, politically, understanding how you're going to change their lives, and sharing that and being consistent. And then how you're going to engage, when and how, map that out. That's what that's your go-to-market strategy, really. But everybody needs to know about it and share information along that path, because the other thing that's happening right now in the marketplace is this really dynamism. 1 minute something works, then it doesn't work. So you have to be tracking and paying attention and sharing so that doesn't perpetuate itself if there's a strategy that doesn't work, let's say. And then why buy? Why should the customer buy? Why are they buying in the first place? And then why, of course, they should buy it from you. That's your differentiation. And then how are you going to close? What's the method of closing, right? How long is it going to take? Again, something to be shared across the organization. Upselling and cross-selling. This is an enormous opportunity. When we walk into clients, almost, I'm going to say 90% of the time, this is an enormous opportunity, because you're talking to people who already know you, and already you have already become part of your club. So these are the things that you want to discuss with your team members, make sure everybody's aligned, and have it front and center for yourself. So marketing, we just had to share that word. It's a terrible word.
Snarky.
Well, it's funny that there is a word for it, right? Because it's enormous. If you start looking out there, you'll see this is not new. This is a really important thing. And all it is aligning sales and marketing and acting like a team. And we all know in everything that we do, breaking down silos is a good thing. And one of the reasons is because of technology and all the data that you're collecting across your organization, and using that data wisely. So one of the things you want to get straight is how you're going to determine your customer acquisition cost, the CAC. Now, really what you do for that, and there's some disagreement, and you're going to want agreement, but all your costs from sales and marketing go into it, including your salaries, including your advertising and promotional budgets, including your overhead. It all goes in there, and it goes in for both teams. Then you take a look and say, okay, here's how much I will spend over a quarter in all of these ways, and here's how many customers I'll get in that quarter. So let's say that in that quarter we were really rich and we had $500,000 budget on our sales and our marketing. That's what we spent, and we got 50 customers. Right? It costs us $10,000 per customer. Now that might sound like a lot, and it might be a lot, by the way, too much. You'll have to determine that. But also take into account the lifetime value. Because one of the things that you want to know about your customers is how much are they going to spend on me, on us, before we lose them, or for whatever we consider their lifespan through experience. Like, if you have a coaching customer client, they'll probably stay with you, let's say 3 years, right? And over 3 years, they'll spend, I don't know, $5,000, right? So that's a lifetime value. And you want to be looking at that number as well as just what they bought from you in that 1 month or that 3 month period that we were talking about. So cost of customer acquisition, acknowledging the lifetime value of the customer. These numbers are important because you're going to use them and you're going to measure them. These are areas for improvement. An area that almost nobody ever agrees on is the definition of a lead. So we have a client, and they've got a sales and marketing department, and when somebody clicks through and says, "I want a meeting," marketing considers that a lead. Is it a qualified lead? No, it has not been qualified. So that's a marketing qualified lead, and the SQL is a sales qualified lead. So the first thing is just that they're a prospect. You might call them a prospect. You can decide what the names are, but you have to agree with everybody on the team about what they mean, right? So let's call the first person who clicked on that, said, "Let's have a meeting." Let's call them a prospect. Then marketing qualifies them. That there's two choices here. Either marketing or sales can qualify this lead, right? But what you want to think about is who's going to have the relationship? How are you going to develop this relationship? How's the buying going to occur? In a B2B situation, you're developing a relationship which is going to help you close that sale. So you, on the sales side, might want to take over qualifying that lead. You don't need marketing to do it because you want to immediately dive in and start developing a relationship. That's a choice that you can make, but you need to make them. Because otherwise you go, "Hey, I gave you 100 leads." And they go, "No, you didn't. I didn't get any leads." And then you also find out they didn't nurture them. They got all these leads. These people said, "Let's have a meeting." And nobody followed up and said, "Hey, can I provide you some more value? I would like to show you how you can, increase your sales 100%, whatever it is that you come back to engage the client with, right? So very important to decide what a lead is, how it's going to be qualified, and then the conversion rate. What's that? It means the close of a sale. Critical number for you to know. How many times did you talk with a customer or a potential client? I talked with 10 clients and 3 of them became paying customers. That's your conversion rate. It's a 30% conversion rate. And what you want to do with both your marketing and sales is improve those rates. If you're doing great, awesome. How do you do better? And there's ways to do better through marketing and sales and customer nurturing. So let's move on. Unless there's any questions before we move on, if I can figure out how to go back. Are there any thoughts or questions that anybody would like to jump in with at this point?
I'm not seeing any in the chat. So
okay, so you'll let us know.
Let's keep rolling. Yeah, and feel free all to put questions in the chat along the way. We don't have to just hold them towards the end completely.
Right, but we're happy to run through and kind of give you a kind of a big dump of information and then dissect it with you after too. So let's talk about content for a second. Back in the day, we used to say, "Oh, I know my customer. I know what they're doing. I know what they care about. I'm going to write them an article about X," right? And we'd put it out there and we'd hope something happened, right? Well, the better way to do it is to really think about your content and how it is going to generate a lead, right, for your sales department. This is why about 70% of the content is not used, is because it hasn't anticipated the buyer journey and what information they're looking for at different points along that journey in order to go to the next stage and get closer to you. So so let's just focus, because we're going to talk about the journey in a sec. Let's talk about the marketing lead generation, right? Those are the things that cause you, that they're awareness generators, or what we usually talk about is the top of the funnel. The first thing you have to do is let people know you exist. So how do you do that? It's always about providing value, right? And it's always about sharing something that you uniquely have to offer, right? Here's your ebook example. It might be about your philosophies. It might be about your approaches. It could be about how to get results. There's all kinds of subjects that could go into your ebook that support you and your brand and what you're trying to do. Courses, obviously, I'm sure many people here have given lots of courses. We do that too. And it gets people to get to know you. And that's the only job of that beginning of marketing lead generation, is to get people to know you. And then the next phase is for them to express some interest, right? So maybe we're going to write to you after this with an email. I'm just giving an example. And we're going to say, hey, you took this sales and marketing course with us, this master course, and we'd love to come and audit your sales technology or your marketing technology. So we can tell you whether you're using the right stuff or not. We might do that to offer you extra value. And then you go, hey, you know what? I wouldn't mind that. You get to know us better. We figure out how we can help you more, and we're off to the races. So that's an example of marketing lead generation. I'm just going to mention clickbait, because we love it and we hate it, right? We want to get those clicks, but what you don't want to do is a bait and switch. If you promise something, six tips for a better relationship, they better be real tips, real things that people can use. Don't just get them over the curve, because you'll lose a customer very quickly by not giving them what you've set them up to expect, right? So now there's sales enablement content, right? And that's really a key area, is to work with your sales folks and say, how do I help you from the beginning of your initial contact with the customer to the close? How do I help you get there? So we know a lot about salespeople. They are relationship people. They like to talk to people. They don't want to be on the computer all day entering data, and they don't want to read a ton of stuff. They want to connect, right? So that's what you want to help them do. And, how do you do that? Well, you give them simple, easy ways to add value to their customers. Like, I'll go right to white papers. White papers give your salespeople something that they can share with their client that has value, that gives them a reason to talk, right? And white papers are different from articles and other things in that they go in depth into something. So they're really for when the client is in that consideration phase, and it tries to answer all the outstanding questions a client might have before they choose your product. But the other things like cheat sheets, we like to make those for our salespeople that they can put right next to their phones or on their desk. And it's like the 5 things you got to make sure that you covered, right? Just make their lives easy, help them remember, give them simple tools, help them have more conversations. So let's talk briefly about intersecting with the customer journey. So we talked about awareness, right? That's those ebooks and other kinds of communications that let them know we're here. Now then there's the interest. Now we're going to talk about white papers, right? We know they're interested. Let's give them more value. Let's answer all the questions they could possibly have. And now it's time to go from interest to conversion. And that's the handoff to the sales department, right? Or with the sales mindset. How do you close? What's that process? Maybe it's, it might be an audit of their stuff. It might be an evaluation of their tech stack. Who knows? It's different things for conversion. Don't forget retention. This is the part of the nurturing process, right? Retaining a customer is so much more important. I know you've heard this before than getting a new one. Think about the $10,000 number, right? But you've already got them. If you can keep them, you're not spending that $10,000. So what do? This is your opportunity to truly delight people. Part of retention is customer service. So for example, in some of the retail efforts that we've done, customer service comes first. We don't care if you've got a problem, we're going to fix it. If our product didn't serve you, we're going to give you a new one, because it's far cheaper for us to give you a new product than it is for us to try to replace you as a customer. So this is a really good time to delight them and turn them into advocates. Because of the migration to the digital world, the reliance on reviews and ratings is so high. It's really profitable to turn your customers into advocates. And critically speaking, we've got this thing that says remove friction and increase joy at every interaction. If you look at your interactions the way we're discussing, lay them out there from marketing to sales and beyond, and you say, how do I make it easy? Less clicks, less questions, less time for them to act, and make it fun and rewarding, you're going to move them through there so much faster, and your conversion rates are going to increase. It's fun to think about joy for your customers along the way, and there's a lot of ways to provide it. Nicole, looks like you want to say something.
Just that, the earlier statistic that we provided was that at every one of these touch points, it's really important that customers want content along the way. So, nurturing them through each and every point here with a little bit of content and with joy and taking the friction out is really the killer combination. Those are the brands that suck me in personally as a consumer. I love it when I'm thanked for, even looking at something that may be super relevant to me. So just think about the many different ways that you do touch that journey, and what is it that content can bring that's of value and bringing a little bit of joy.
So we have been talking about funnels for many years, and I think they're still relevant. They're a fun way to kind of get your brain going, but there's this concept of the flywheel, and the reason why we're sharing it with you here is just to underscore the fact that it's not linear, how people are finding out about you and how they're engaging with you. It can happen any place, anytime. They can already have made a decision to buy by the time they get into an engagement. You don't really know. And that's why spending the time at all of these stages is important. The second thing that's important to remember about the flywheel reminds you of is that it's not a given. Loyalty is not very strong these days. There's a lot of disruptive businesses coming in, direct-to-consumer businesses that are challenging the old established businesses, ones and new competitors. The bar for entry is lower now, thanks to digital marketing and digital engagement. So you have to always be selling. Right? You have to always be keeping people and interesting them in something else and engaging them and making them feel part of your orbit at all times if you can. So think of it as a continuum. Don't think that you've got them just because you've got them. Keep getting them.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go fairly quick. SOPs are standard operating procedures, right? It's critical to align here. Because it just smooths out the handoff and nobody gets to say, gee, I didn't know that contact was in HubSpot, right? That's what you don't want. You want everybody, you want responsibility for every point along the way and measured responsibility from initial contact to follow up. We've talked a lot about, we've mentioned the word nurturing. If you want to talk more about it, there's a lot to nurturing relationships. You're all in the relationship, or many of you are in the relationship business. So you're probably going to be really, really good at that. So apply your knowledge as nurturers to the marketing process. We wanted to call out onboarding because when you get a new customer, their experience with you right off the bat is going to set the tone for everything that they do with you, right? And it's part of the retention strategy. In magazines, they've got this thing called renewal at birth, which means the minute that you subscribe to a magazine, they'll try to renew you. You'll get a notice and it says, hey, you went for 1 year, go for 3, and we'll give it to you for that. And the reason is because at that birth, the expectations are the highest, right? everybody's got their ideas of what's going to happen. And so this is a tremendous opportunity for you to immediately extend your engagement right there. So I just want to mention that about, onboarding's part of that, can be tied into the upsell or the cross-sell. Customer service, you know how important it is. We mentioned that delighting in that spot, making it easy, friendly, nice agents, you know how much that's a difference that makes. And now we want to get to technology, and I want to turn you over to Nicole, because Nicole has been on a mad worldwide tear looking at different technologies for M&A purposes for various companies. And so she's really knowledgeable. She's going to talk to you a little bit about the kinds of technologies you can use to manage this whole process.
Well, this is absolutely one of my favorite topics in the world. My handle on Twitter is TechieCat. And, since the earliest days of software in the 90s and, being marketers for software companies and whatnot, and needing to translate their value into what did it really do for people and, the end consumer, to today, Ray Kurzweil has always spoken, he's a futurist, and he's always spoken about how information technology will continue to develop exponentially. Well, in the world of marketing and sales, it is absolutely done so. And so every company is doing business digitally, right? And has to invest in tech. The smallest or independent, consultants to the largest enterprise organizations really have to invest deeply in technology. And it's gone from 150 solutions. This is mind blowing. 150 solutions in 2011 to over 9,000 in almost 10,000 in 2022. So we're all trying to do our best to stay on top of these technologies, what they actually do for people, and apply them to our businesses for greater ROI. The key in thinking about technology for marketing and sales is to always keep the customer at the core. So if you're evaluating a CRM or a email technology or a sales lead generation technology, if you're always looking at it and creating strategies that put the customer at the core, you will not go wrong. So that's just one of those key benchmarks that we all need to keep in mind. And then it's super imperative, as we said before, to have an integrated go-to-market strategy across the sales and marketing teams. Next slide.
Okay, here we go.
So this is an illustration. Chief MarTech provides an amazing service. They show us every year where the marketing technologies and what does the landscape look like. And this, this is meant to blow your mind, and it blows mine because literally we used to be able to look at these charts and see companies we knew and where the market was going. And here it's just exponential growth. And then later we'll point out the fact that the key areas of growth is look at the growth in content and experience and social and relationships. Those areas have grown exponentially faster because of our need for digital technology and working remotely and what they've been able to do to help us sell. So really interesting. Next slide. Thank you. So what are, there's sales and marketing technologies across the board. We have MarTech, ad tech, sales tech. And the key is to think about what is the one source of truth? Where does your data live? It's super important to make sure that these technologies are aligned. You don't have tons of overlap, which is always hard to do. That's why we do audits of technology across marketing and sales organizations to really help companies find that data, the one source of truth. That's kind of a holy grail for us. And then with marketing and ad tech, we're focused on all these software solutions that help with content and the customer experience and guiding the customer journey, direct marketing, etc. Really managing data. And as pointed out before, the areas of greatest growth and proliferation are content and experience and social and relationships, because that's what we lost during the pandemic as well. So we've seen a lot of different technologies there, most of which are AI based as well. So they're learning as we go, and that's proven to really point out that almost everything is knowable. Really understanding your different constituents, your customers, your partners, your employees, even it's all knowable. Some examples of the almost 10,000 marketing and ad tech technologies that you might use in your day-to-day are HubSpot, MailChimp for email marketing, Hootsuite for social marketing. Those are just a few. Again, there's almost 10,000. So we could go on and on about that, but taking a look at them, really identifying what they do for the organization, seeing the points so they're not overlapping, and understanding the one source of truth for where that data lives to truly understand your customer is the key. And then in terms of sales tech, we're looking at, how is this content connecting with the audience at the right time to turn them, to nurture them and turn them into leads, into closed deals, right? And so we have CRM technologies, we have a lot of sales automation, tracking conversations, reminding you when to reach out again, all these different tools, sorting through the data, knowing and understanding how, when, and where your customers have purchased in the past. We can all do this on a small scale, or we can do it at the enterprise level. And some examples of these technologies are, Salesforce on the very high end side, technologies like Pipedrive or Copper that really help across all these areas that I just mentioned, and LinkedIn Sales Navigator for the B2B salesperson. So let's sum it all up and get to some questions.
Okay, so the reason to do this is increasing sales, right? And you will increase your annual growth rate. So if you only think of, can remember three things, right, from this talk, think about content as an engagement driver. Think about, know that you're competing with a lot of other content, so your content has to be on point and super. And somebody brought up the issue of purpose in the chat, and I just want to say, purpose is a great thing to create content around. People are very interested in why, the whys behind things. So think about that. So number one, think about content as an engagement driver. Think about empowering your sales team with content. Number two is that when you align the departments, it's going to impact everything. It's going to impact the tools that you use, because you're going to be having collaboration tools, and you're going to have people looking at the tools from different perspectives and using them for different things. So what tools you choose and how they're going to work for everybody is going to be important. But one of the great things is that you're going to get a lot of team building. Your employees are going to feel more engaged, and they're going to be a lot more empowered with information. And you're going to find that this is going to become much more streamlined, which is really what you want, right? So aligning the departments, knowing that you're going to have to look at your tools and how they're shared and populated. And the third is that the experience that your customer has with you across everything that we've just discussed is a huge differentiator. Think about the experience of the purchase experience. Think about a company like Warby Parker, you know, the glasses company that went online, right? So they did differentiated by the experience, right? You could get the 6 glasses. It was easy to return them. If you wanted to see them in person, they had stores, and all the stores did was help you find the right glasses, like be a fashion consultant. It was a great experience. You know, contrast that with Costco. It's a different experience. Help yourself. It's like a warehouse. Get a whole bunch of it, right? Never find anybody to help you. But the value you get is different, and the experience that you have there is different. So think about your experience as a differentiator, the experience of you, and that's where your brand and your personal brands will really come into play. Content, alignment, and experience are the 3 most important things you can think about in improving sales. And